Next Generation Weather Forecaster Joe Shaka here from Patreon and YouTube.com, taking a look today at a severe weather outbreak review that we saw yesterday afternoon and evening here in the northeastern part of the United States. A very unusual situation for this part of the country, and again, especially given that we are here in mid-November. So I'm going to be taking a look today at the model guidance and then actually what happened. And this was very well forecasted by the model several days out. So we'll start here with a tweet from me on Saturday morning. Looking at the models, you can see this is our various runs here and timestamps of the day. I'm bringing through a squall line with strong damaging winds becoming quite likely. You can see what it looks like there. And of course, because I'm only covering, southern New England, I'm not going to, forecast for Pennsylvania and other areas that this impacted. But at least here in southern New England, you can see what the model had like there. And again, going back to it here then Saturday evening, exceptional setup for a squall line with damaging winds and possibly a tornado. And we did see 2 tornado warnings in the New York City metro area and parts of central Long Island. We haven't seen anything confirmed yet, but certainly the ingredients were there to see that rotation showing up on radar. That is why those 2 tornado warnings were issued. But overall, again, we'll talk about some of these wind products as we go through our presentation here, but a very, very favorable setup to produce what we saw. Now, looking at some of the model guidance going back to Friday and Saturday, this is a Friday the 13th, you can see the European ensemble seeing many members with the threatened wind gusts, exceeding 50 miles an hour. And the ensemble mean is just at about 50. So you can see what that looks like there. We saw this several days in advance, the overall large-scale pattern of a damaging wind, widespread intense wind event. Now, looking at some more of the guidance, you can see now this is from the NSL, from the Storm Prediction Center, part of the HRF, and you can see what it looks like here as we're looking at the Sunday evening time frame. You can see a line of heavy showers and thunderstorms crossing through the northeast at this time. And then you can see as we get towards close to midnight, you can see it continuing to press off to the east like that. 700 millibar winds during this time. Again, a very, very strong 700 millibar jet, up around 75, 80 knots in some cases. So a very, very strong jet to support a forced line of convection from pretty much the Great Lakes on eastward. And again, this is a time stamp as we get into later in the day yesterday, but you can see this overall feature and this large-scale troughing that is occurring with this feature. Now, looking at the SPC's outlooks and how this forecast really has evolved over the last, few forecast cycles from them was very, very interesting to watch. So here was yesterday's mornings. You could see general risk. Here's what they had for wind. Then midday yesterday, they went to this. Wind, they came up a little bit more. Then yesterday midday, once things got once this really got going, they went to this and they increased their wind probabilities. Then as we got into the afternoon and evening, they continue to enhance their outlook, and you can see what the wind probabilities look like there. And then once we got into the overnight, focusing this here in New England and the northeast along the coast, you can see what the categorical outlook looks like there, and along with the wind probabilities that are there. Now, there were a ton of these watches, so I thought it was just going to be too many to cover, but you can see obviously where the Storm Prediction Center had issued a severe thunderstorm watch. You can see all these areas here where we have gray in the number 0. You can see 0 days since a severe thunderstorm watch has been issued. And again, this is something that I put out yesterday afternoon at 3 o'clock after we've seen wind damage pretty extensive here in Indiana and Ohio, and it was continuing getting into western Pennsylvania. I put this out and you can see a line of low top convection continues to move east and has a history of producing strong and damaging winds, and additional severe thunderstorm watches will be needed over the next few hours. A wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour will quite likely with this line again as it continue to move off to the east like that. Now, looking again more synoptically, you can see at 500 millibars, we have a large trough coming into this part of the region. Again, very, very strong winds at 500 millibars approaching 100 knots. Very, very cold temperatures aloft as well, aiding in this. You can see temperatures dropping off into the minus 20 Celsius along the base of the trough. 700 millibar, again, looking at this, there's the trough. There's some moisture convergence up through here, over 70% shading in green. And again, you can see the winds upwards of 70, 80 knots. Analysis there, again, this is not a forecast, this is what's actually going on. And the HREF at 700 millibars was the forecast. So you can see that the upper level synoptic features were modeled very accurately in this particular setup. Now, moving on to some more surface analysis or mesoscale severe weather analysis, looking at 0 to 6 kilometer shear, and this was at 9 p.m. yesterday as the storms were entering southern New England here, a little bit closer to home. You can see we had just incredible 0 to 6 kilometer shear, pretty much anywhere from 80 to 100, 110 knots here in eastern New York State. So incredibly strong 0 to 6 kilometer shear. Because the shear was just so strong, it helped make up for the lack of surface instability. So very impressive situation with these kind of shear values being seen at 0 to 6 kilometers. Mid-level lapse rates were quite impressive, 6 to 6.5 Celsius per kilometer. You can see anything really over 5.5 or 6 does favor, enhancement of severe weather with mid-level lapse rates. Mesoscale convective system maintenance probabilities was definitely greater than 90%, so we had very high confidence. Another thing that showed high confidence that this was going to maintain itself all the way through New England. Then looking here at the 0 to 3 kilometer storm relative helicity, SRH, you can see some very impressive numbers here. I mean, this is insane. 2, 4, I mean, over 1,000 up and through here. So that again helped favor storm development and maintenance. And of course, as we continue to get closer in the storm system and processes continue to evolve, the SPC issued one of many, and here's just an example here in southern New England. They issued a mesoscale discussion talking about the severe thunderstorm watch that was going to continue over the next several hours. Here's a loop of the satellite imagery. This is part of the system earlier in the day. You can see by the clouds. This is from WeatherCon. You can see it coming through Ohio, then into Pennsylvania, New York State, and the Mid-Atlantic, and then there's that nice squall line, 2 sections of the squall line that as it continues to move off to the east like that. So again, a very dynamic storm system. And this got down to the 970s as it lifted up into southeast Canada. But very impressive. I'll loop it one more time. But truly impressive. And it looks like there was a little bit of weakening here in central PA, and you'll see that in the storm reports, there's a little bit of a gap here in central PA, where it's a little bit weaker. We didn't get as many storm reports, and then it refired once it got into the eastern part of Pennsylvania. Again, here's another image of that animation here, but it goes through the entire event. And this is, of course, from Weatherbell. And again, you can see here in eastern Ohio, that main squall line with some showers out ahead of it, which might have limited some of the intensity there in central PA. Again, you'll see that in the storm reports. And then this new line gets reinvigorated as the whole process here. You can see it starting again the eastern PA, starting to get enhancement again, as again the low-level jet starting to increase at 7 and 500 millibars, the nocturnal jet, like we like to call it. And then as we start getting to 7, 8 o'clock, it really begins to enhance coming into New Jersey and further parts of the Mid-Atlantic, and also going up into New York and here in southern New England. Classic Boeing segment feature there showing up quite nicely. Here's, again, more severe thunderstorm warnings that were issued at 10:30 last night. Now, looking at the verification from the SPC using their various outlooks. I believe I have those in order. Okay. So, this was their morning update yesterday. You can see, again, how they had a very small area focus in the Mid-Atlantic. And, of course, they completely in the early morning update, missed everything outside of that. Then as we get towards mid-morning, they saw that enhancement. Afternoon, then late afternoon, and then into the evening, which we must have somewhere else. I think it's actually in the further down, but they pull it, further east, and they show the the East Coast I-95 area, highlighting it up quite nicely. Now, talking about total severe reports, that this was definitely a notable event. This beats the super outbreak of April 25th, 2011. You can see we had 467 reports. This is at 483, and we're still counting. So very impressive that this is up there with the super outbreak of 2011, which was 25 through 27 of April 2011, with the most single day being on April 27th of a little bit over 900 total severe reports. But this is certainly notable to surpass a day in the super outbreak. So that's pretty impressive. But again, 467 with that. And then here is the severe thunderstorm warnings that were issued along with that. You can see here pretty much almost every state in the Northeast except Maine had a severe thunderstorm warning going on. Also, again, here into much of the Mid-Atlantic. Now, I was talking to one of my friends on Twitter as this, really begins to crank up. And I said, well, I think this is going to get to 500 wind reports by the end of this. And you can see at this time, we were a little over 200. We had 223 as of 20 of 8 yesterday afternoon. And then you can see what he said here, especially, with the highly populated areas that this was still moving into. So moving into that, we now have 483 reports, and we're still counting. So this may get very, very close to, within a few of 500 by the end of the day over the next few days this upcoming week. But very, very impressive for this time of the year, and really any time of the year in this part of the country, to see this kind of wind damage report. Just insane. And again, you can see that hole, that gap here in central PA where that weakened for a time. So, we could still see some more reports coming out of there or really anywhere, but you could definitely notice the weakening that happened there, and then again, re-strengthening as it got closer to the coast. And again, here's another visual of that as well. Again, around State College, there's that gap showing up. But no question that this was a high impact, very rare event, and I think this could have easily deserved a moderate, if not high risk rating from the SPC if you want to reanalyze this, the forecast. It was a little bit better to see this, further out. But no question, this was definitely an historic event for this part of the country, no matter what time of year it is, even if it's in the peak of severe weather season or, occurring here in November. No question. Definitely a notable event. And I think even if, it happens in the Southeast or anywhere in the country, that this would have been historic. No question about it. But anyway, very impressive, very, very impressive to say the least. Well, that's it for now, and thank you for watching.